The woman had been working in the large mansion for only a few months, but every day still felt like walking into a world she did not fully belong to. The house was huge, quiet, and filled with expensive things she didn't dare touch. She had come here only to earn a living, to do her work quietly, and to avoid any trouble. That was what she promised herself on the first day. But life has a way of changing promises without warning, and she soon realized this house held more silence than comfort. It felt heavy, as if something was missing inside these walls. The owner of the house, a very wealthy businessman, wasn't unkind, but he carried himself with a seriousness that made people step back. He spoke little, kept to his strict schedule, and rarely showed emotion. Most people in the staff tried not to cross his path unless needed. He wasn't angry or rude, just distant. His eyes looked like they were always thinking about the next meeting, the next task, the next problem he had to solve. It was as if he lived more in his head than in the present moment, but the true heart of the story was his young son. The boy was quiet, gentle, and blind from early childhood. He didn't complain, didn't demand attention, and didn't disturb anyone. Because of this, many people forgot he was even there. He had his own small routine, listening to audiobooks, feeling different objects to understand their shapes, sometimes sitting on the balcony to enjoy the warm air and bird sounds. The woman noticed him on her first week, sitting alone in the corner of the garden, touching the leaves of a plant very carefully, as if learning its story with his fingers. She felt a small ache in her chest watching him. He seemed so used to being alone that loneliness had become normal for him. Every day while doing her work, she passed by the music room. It was one of the prettiest rooms in the whole house. Sunlight entered through tall windows, soft carpets covered the floor, and in the center stood a beautiful piano, polished, shining, and untouched. It looked like a quiet treasure waiting for someone to wake it. She always wondered who played it. Sometimes she heard faint notes from long ago, as if the walls remembered, but she never asked questions. It wasn't her place. One afternoon, after finishing her chores, she entered the music room to dust the shelves and wipe the piano. As she walked inside, she noticed movement near the instrument. The boy was standing there, his hand resting carefully on the piano's wooden frame. He seemed unsure, almost nervous, as if he wasn't supposed to be there. She didn't want to startle him, so she spoke gently. "It's just me," she said softly. "I didn't mean to scare you." He turned his head slightly toward her voice. "I didn't touch anything," he said quickly, a bit afraid he might get in trouble. "It's all right," she assured him. "You're not doing anything wrong." He looked down, fingers still resting on the edge of the piano. I like the way it feels," he admitted. "It's smooth and cool. And sometimes it makes sound if I press something." He lifted his hand, trying to find a key, but he was hesitant, unsure which direction to move. She watched him for a moment, her heart softening. It wasn't the piano he wanted, it was the sound, the mystery of it, the idea that he could create something he had never seen. "Do you want to try?" she asked. He took a step back. "I don't know how." "You don't need to know everything," she said with a small smile. "You can learn." He didn't answer, but she saw the curiosity in his face. It was quiet in the room, the kind of silence that invites something new to begin. She walked slowly to the piano bench and gently pulled it out. "Come here," she said kindly. "Sit beside me." He hesitated, then slowly walked toward her, guided by the soft sound of her voice. She took his hand carefully, not too tight, not too loose, and helped him sit on the bench. He touched the keys lightly, as if afraid they would break. His fingers curled back quickly. "They won't hurt you," she whispered. "Try pressing one." He reached out again, this time pressing a single key. The sound was soft but clear. His face changed instantly. A small, surprised smile appeared. "It makes music." "Yes," she said. "Every key makes a different sound." He pressed another and another. Each note seemed to open a new world for him. She watched quietly, letting him explore. After a minute, she placed her hand gently over his. "Can I show you something?" He nodded. She guided his finger to a key in the middle. "This one is important. It's called middle C. If you can always find this, you'll know where you are on the piano." "How do I find it again?" he asked. Feel the two black keys here? She guided his hand. Middle C is right under the one on the left. He touched the keys, memorizing their shapes with careful movements. Then he pressed the note again. He smiled wider this time. I found it by myself. Yes, you did. It was a small moment, but it felt like something powerful had begun. After that day, things changed quietly, not with big steps, but with tiny ones. Whenever the father was away at meetings or work, the woman found little ways to teach the boy. She never planned to become a teacher. She simply followed what felt right. Sometimes she taught him simple patterns to touch and repeat. Sometimes she asked him to listen to a rhythm and tap it back. And sometimes, when the day felt heavy, she just let him play freely, pressing keys like he was discovering a language made only for him. The boy began opening up. He asked questions, so many questions. How does the piano look? What shape is it? Why do some notes sound warm and others sound sad? She tried her best to explain everything in simple words. She described the curves, the wood, the shine, the shape of the keys, and the way sound filled the room like a soft wave. The more he learned, the more confident he became. He started waking up earlier, waiting for the little moments when she would come to the music room. His face changed too. The quiet sadness that once surrounded him slowly began to lift. He laughed. Sometimes now, especially when he pressed the wrong note and surprised himself, she found joy in those small laughs. They made her feel her work meant something beyond cleaning and chores, but she was always careful. She made sure the father never saw the lessons. She didn't want to upset him or seem like she was crossing boundaries. She didn't know how he would react. Maybe he would think she was wasting the boy's time. Maybe he would worry the piano was too fragile. Or maybe he just wanted the house to stay quiet, controlled, predictable. Whatever the reason, she didn't want to cause trouble. So their lessons became their secret something warm hidden inside a cold, silent house. One afternoon, after a long day, the boy placed his hand on the piano and said, "It feels less scary now." "Why was it scary?" she asked gently. "Because," he paused, searching for words, "because I didn't know if I was allowed to touch it. And I didn't know if I could ever learn something like music." "You can learn anything," she said. "You just need someone to guide you." He turned his head toward her. "You guide me." She didn't know how to answer that. She simply placed her hand over his again and said, "Let's learn more." As he pressed the keys, creating soft patterns of sound, she realized something. She had come to this house looking for work, for stability, for a chance to support her family. But now, somehow, she had found purpose. Not in the polished floors or perfect rooms, but in the boy who trusted her, who believed in her guidance, and who was discovering a new world through music. What she didn't know was that these quiet lessons, hidden in the silence of a mansion, were slowly building towards something much bigger. Something that would change the boy's life, her own life, and even the father's life in ways none of them could imagine yet. But for now, in that sunlit room, all that mattered was one boy, one piano, and one note at a time. The boy's journey with the piano slowly began to grow. Just like a seed that starts hidden underground before anyone notices it has sprouted. Each day, the woman came to the music room with a calm smile and a patient voice. And each day, the boy greeted her with a little more confidence than the last. What started as a small moment of curiosity had turned into a quiet routine neither of them wanted to break. In the beginning, the lessons were simple. She showed him how to find middle C again and again until he could locate it by touch without thinking. She taught him how to move left for deeper notes and right for lighter notes. The boy could not see the keyboard, but in some strange and beautiful way, he understood the piano better than many people who could see perfectly. He listened with his heart instead of his eyes. One morning, when she entered the room, she found him sitting upright on the bench, his hands gently placed on the keys as if waiting for her signal. It surprised her. He wasn't usually there before she arrived. "You came early today," she said with a smile. "I was thinking about a sound from yesterday," he told her. "The one you said sounded like a tiny raindrop. I wanted to try it again." She realized he meant a high note on the right side. That small detail made her smile warmly. "Let's find it together," she said. Dot, when he pressed the key and heard the note echo softly, he grinned. Yes, he whispered, this one. Moments like this made her feel proud. Teaching him wasn't just about music, it was about helping him discover something inside himself. He was learning to trust his abilities, something he hadn't done much before. As the weeks passed, the woman introduced small exercises to help him feel rhythm. She tapped the table lightly and asked him to follow the pattern. Sometimes he got it right, sometimes he didn't, but he never gave up. His hands, once unsure and careful, now moved with determination. The father noticed the change, though he didn't understand the reason behind it yet. He saw his son walking with a little more confidence, sitting with better posture, and appearing happier. For a man who spent most of his day surrounded by business meetings and serious decisions, this small change caught his attention. He asked the staff a few times if they noticed anything different, but no one dared to say much. They didn't want to reveal the secret lessons happening in the music room. The boy's world was beginning to open, and the woman could feel it. Sometimes when he played a few notes correctly, he would turn toward her with a proud smile, as if hoping for her approval. She always nodded. You're getting better every day, she told him, and she meant it, but she was also worried. The lessons were their secret, and secrets always come with fear. She didn't want to lose her job. She didn't want the father to think she was overstepping her duties. She didn't want the boy to get in trouble or feel guilty. But whenever she saw his joy, she pushed all those worries aside for a moment. The boy deserved this. He deserved music, encouragement, and someone who believed in him. One day, while they were practicing, the boy asked a question that made her pause. Do you think music can help me see things? He asked softly. She sat beside him, choosing her words carefully. Maybe not with your eyes, she said, but you can see with your heart. Music shows pictures too, just different ones. What kind of pictures? He asked. Well, she replied, touching a low note gently. The sound feels like a warm blanket or a deep night sky. And this sound, she pressed a higher key, feels like a sparkle or sunlight on water. He touched the keys slowly, as if trying to imagine what she described. Then maybe I can see, he said quietly. Just not the way others do? The way he said those words touched her deeply. It made her realize how powerful these lessons were. He wasn't just learning a skill, he was learning to understand himself in a new way. Over time, his curiosity grew. He wanted to know how melodies worked, how notes connected, and why some combinations sounded happy while others sounded sad. She did her best to explain, using simple words and giving examples he could relate to. For happy sounds, she said, imagine the first time you felt the sun on your face after a cold morning. Or when you hear birds singing outside your window. And sad sounds? He asked. Those feel like a slow rain or like missing someone? He nodded slowly. I understand. Every day they built on what he learned before. His memory was sharp, and because he relied on sound more than sight, he remembered notes and patterns quickly. Soon he could play tiny pieces, nothing complicated, just short little patterns. But to him they were precious. One afternoon, she taught him a small melody, only 7 notes long. He repeated it again and again until he could play it without her guiding his hands. You're amazing, she said proudly. No, he answered with a shy laugh. You just explain things in a way I can understand. I explain, she said, but you learn. Later that evening, the woman noticed the father standing on the balcony quietly. He seemed lost in thought, looking over the garden with a heavy expression. She wondered what was on his mind, work, memories, or perhaps his son's sudden brightness. She didn't dare ask, but she felt bad that he seemed so distant from the happiness growing inside the house. Sometimes she wished he knew. She wished he could hear the boy play just once. Maybe it would bring him some peace. Maybe it would remind him that hope still existed, even in small moments. But she didn't want to risk upsetting him. So she kept the lessons quiet, protecting the boy's progress like a fragile secret. As the boy improved, he also became more curious about the world beyond the keyboard. What does the room look like? He asked one day. She described everything: the tall windows, the soft carpet, the vase near the corner, the sunlight falling on the piano. He listened carefully, as if trying to paint a picture in his mind. Is it beautiful? He asked. Yes, she said truthfully. But when you play, it becomes even more beautiful. It was moments like these that made her feel grateful for the bond they were forming. She wasn't just an employee to him. She was someone he trusted, someone he felt safe with. And in a house filled with silence, their little conversations brought life to the air. One afternoon, after a long practice, he asked her something unexpected. "Why do you teach me?" He said softly, "You don't have to." She took a moment to breathe. "Because I see how much you love it," she said. "And because everyone deserves a chance to learn something that makes their heart full. But what if my father gets angry?" He whispered. She looked down. That was the question she feared the most. "Then we will explain," she said gently. "But until then, we keep going." He nodded, trusting her completely. Day by day, his confidence grew. He wasn't just learning music, he was changing. He sat taller, spoke more, asked questions with excitement instead of fear, and laughed freely. He was beginning to understand that he was capable of much more than he ever believed, and even though the lessons were still hidden, the change in him was visible to anyone who took a close look. His world was expanding, reaching beyond the walls of his own quiet routine, but with every step forward, the woman knew they were getting closer to the moment when someone, maybe the father, would finally discover what was happening inside the music room. The boy didn't fear that moment. He trusted her completely, but she felt a knot of worry tightening inside her every day. She didn't want trouble, but she also couldn't stop teaching him, not when she saw the hope shining in his face every time he played a new note. And so, the lessons continued, hidden yet bright, growing like a flame that was impossible to hide forever. She didn't know it yet, but the day when everything changed was approaching far faster than she imagined. For weeks, the woman and the boy continued their secret piano lessons, building a quiet rhythm that felt safe and meaningful. Every day the boy grew more confident, more expressive, and more connected to the world through music. He didn't just learn notes. He learned how to feel them, how to understand the story behind them, and how to let them guide his emotions. And every day, the woman felt more protective of his progress, more invested in his journey, and more afraid of what might happen if the father discovered everything too soon. The house always had a calm, measured silence to it, almost predictable. Doors opened at the same time each morning, footsteps moved in the same pattern, and the father always left for work with the same heavy expression. This routine had become a shield for their secret. They knew exactly when it was safe to sit at the piano, when to practice gently, and when to stop immediately at the sound of a car entering the driveway. But not every day can be predicted. And not every plan stays safe forever. That afternoon started quietly, like all others. The woman was in the kitchen finishing some chores when she heard the boy calling from the music room. "Can we practice today?" he asked, his voice hopeful. "Yes," she said with a smile. "We can practice for a little while?" She walked with him to the music room, helping him find his way to the bench. He sat with his hands ready on the keys, his posture straight, his expression calm but excited. Something was different about him today, like he wanted to show her something new. "I remembered something last night," he said softly. "A sound, a melody. I think I heard it a long time ago. I don't know where from. Can you try playing it?" she asked gently. He nodded and slowly began pressing the keys one by one, searching for the notes in his memory. His fingers moved carefully but with purpose. And then suddenly a familiar pattern emerged, a soft, emotional tune, slow but full of feeling. The woman froze. She had heard this melody too. It was gentle, warm, and carried a kind of sadness that touched the heart if you listened closely. "Where did you hear that?" she asked, almost whispering. "I'm not sure," he replied. Maybe my mother used to hum it. I think I remember something like that." The woman swallowed, trying to control the wave of emotion rising inside her. She didn't know much about the boy's mother, only that she wasn't alive anymore, and her absence still hung heavy over the house. The father never spoke about her. The staff kept their voices soft when her name came up, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. The boy pressed the next note softly. Then another, adjusting the melody by instinct. It wasn't perfect, but the feeling behind it was real, so real it made the woman's eyes sting. "That's beautiful," she whispered. He smiled quietly. "I want to learn it properly." "Then we will," she promised. They began practicing the melody together. She guided him gently, helping him find the right notes, shaping the tune until it formed something whole. As they worked, the room filled with the emotional sound of the half-forgotten melody. It floated through the air like a memory searching for its way back home, but what they didn't know was that the father had returned early. He had been tired that day, too many meetings, too many decisions, too little rest. So he left work sooner than usual, wanting just a quiet moment at home. When he stepped inside the house, he expected silence. The same stillness that always greeted him. Instead, he heard music. He stopped in place, heart suddenly pounding. This wasn't just any music. This was a melody he knew deeply, one he had not heard in years. One that reminded him of evenings filled with warm laughter and soft humming. It was the melody his late wife used to play on that same piano. He followed the sound with slow steps, almost afraid to move. He walked down the hallway, past the staircase, closer and closer to the music room. The closer he got, the heavier his chest felt. When he reached the doorway, he froze. There, sitting at the piano, was his son, pressing the keys with gentle confidence. And beside him, guiding him carefully, was the woman. The father's eyes widened. He had never seen his son touch the piano before. He never even imagined the boy could learn something like this. For a moment he didn't know what to feel: shock, confusion, anger, or something else entirely. His emotions were tangled and heavy, fighting to rise all at once. The boy didn't hear him enter. He kept playing, trying to remember the next note. His small hands shook slightly, but he pressed on, determined. The father felt his heart clench. He wasn't angry. He wasn't upset. He was overwhelmed by the sound of a memory brought back to life by the one person he thought would never be able to play it. The woman noticed him first. She turned her head, her face going pale instantly. She stood up quickly from the bench, her hands trembling. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to explain. Her stomach twisted with fear. The boy heard her sudden movement and stopped playing. "What happened?" he asked, confused. The father stepped forward slowly. His voice was quiet but unsteady. "Who taught you this?" The boy flinched at the sound of his father's voice. When he realized who was standing there, he looked down nervously. I didn't mean to do something wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong," the father said gently. But his eyes shifted to the woman, and she felt the weight of his unspoken questions. The boy reached for her hand, sensing her fear. "She taught me," he said. "She teaches me every day." The father kept staring, trying to understand everything at once. There was surprise in his eyes, yes, but also something deeper: pain, confusion, and something softer too. The woman finally found her voice. "Sir, I'm sorry. I know I should have asked. I didn't want to disrespect your rules. But he wanted to learn. And he has so much talent. You taught him?" The father interrupted, his voice quiet but intense. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. "I taught him because he was curious. Because music makes him happy. Because he deserves a chance." Silence filled the room, heavy, thick, almost suffocating. The father walked closer, trying to choose his words. "Why did you teach him in secret?" The woman lowered her eyes. "Because I didn't know how you would react. And I didn't want to risk losing my job or upsetting you." The father looked at his son, who sat there with his hands resting on the keys, shoulders tense. The boy's lips trembled slightly. He thought he had done something wrong. He thought he was about to be scolded, but the father didn't raise his voice. Instead, he knelt beside his son and placed a shaking hand over his small fingers. "You learned this?" he asked softly. The boy nodded. "I tried. She helped me." "And this melody," the father whispered, "you remembered it?" "I think so," the boy answered. "Did Mama play it?" The father closed his eyes tightly, fighting his emotions. "Yes," he whispered. "She did. She used to play it every night." The boy's expression softened. "It makes me feel safe," he said quietly. The father opened his eyes, now shining with emotion. He looked at the woman again, this time not with anger, but with something much deeper. She didn't know what he was thinking, and that uncertainty made her heart pound. She stepped back slightly. She didn't want to make things worse. She didn't want to cause pain. She just wanted the boy to feel joy, confidence, and something beautiful in his life. But now, everything was out in the open. What the woman didn't know was this. The father wasn't angry. He was simply overwhelmed that his son had learned something he never thought possible. Overwhelmed that a piece of his late wife's memory had returned. And overwhelmed that a woman he barely knew had given his child a gift he could never give. The silence in the room was deep, but something inside it was shifting. Something important. The boy waited quietly. The father tried to breathe normally again, and the woman stood there hoping the moment wouldn't break everything they had, built in secret. None of them knew what the father would say next, but whatever he said, it was about to change all of their lives. The room stayed quiet for a long moment after the boy finished speaking. The woman stood near the bench, her hands tightly folded, trying not to look too scared. The boy sat still, his fingers resting lightly on the piano keys, waiting for his father's reaction. And the father, he looked torn between many emotions: shock, sadness, wonder, and something like guilt. Finally, he took a deep breath and stood up slowly. His voice, when he spoke, was low and calm. "Play it again," he said. The boy hesitated. Do you want me to?" "Yes," the father said, swallowing hard. "I want to hear it." The woman gently guided the boy's hands to the right keys. He took a moment to feel the shapes and curves, then pressed the first note. The soft sound brushed through the room like a memory waking up. He continued, playing the melody as best as he could, each note carrying the fragile tenderness of a child trying to hold on to something he barely remembered. The father closed his eyes as he listened. The melody carried him back to another time before. The silence, before the loneliness, before the weight of work and responsibility had hardened his days. He saw his wife again, sitting at the piano, playing with a gentle smile. He remembered how she hummed this very tune while holding their baby boy in her arms. He remembered her warmth, her laughter, her love. The melody ended softly, leaving the air warm and emotional. The father opened his eyes again. His expression was no longer stern, it wasn't distant. It wasn't the cold mask he wore every day. For the first time in a long time, his face looked human, vulnerable, touched, and full of deep emotion. The boy's voice broke the silence. "Did I play it right?" The father knelt beside him again. "You played it perfectly." The boy's lips curved into a soft smile. The woman felt tears sting her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming tenderness of the moment. The father brushed his son's hair gently. "I didn't know you wanted to learn music." The boy looked confused. "I didn't think I could. Why not?" The father asked. "Because I can't see," the boy said simply. The father's heart broke a little at those words. "My boy," he said softly, "your mother used to say that music is not seen with the eyes. It's felt with the heart." The boy tilted his head. "Then I can do that, right?" "You already are," the father whispered. He looked up at the woman. His expression had changed completely. There was no anger in his eyes now, only gratitude mixed with regret. "You taught him," he said quietly. "You gave him something I never did." The woman lowered her eyes humbly. "I only wanted him to feel confident and safe and happy." "You did more than that," the father said. "You helped him find a part of himself." The woman's voice trembled when she answered. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you." He shook his head. "No, I should be the one apologizing. I've been so busy with work. I forgot to look closely at my own son." The boy squeezed his father's hand. "You didn't forget. You were just busy," the father smiled sadly. "Still, I missed things I shouldn't have missed." A long silence followed, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the beginning of something new, like a door opening after being shut for years. Then the father stood up and looked at the piano. He placed his hand on the wooden frame, feeling its smooth surface. "I haven't heard this sound in so long." The woman watched him carefully. She could see a mix of pain and peace in him. The piano had once been a reminder of loss for him, but now, suddenly, it became a reminder of hope. The father turned to her. "How long have you been teaching him?" "A few months," she said softly. "I didn't push him. He wanted to learn, and he learns fast." "He does," the father agreed, looking at his son with pride. "He's stronger than I thought." The boy turned his face toward the woman. "Can we still learn tomorrow?" She looked at the father, unsure what the answer would be. The father nodded gently. "Yes, you can learn every day if you want." The boy's smile lit up his whole face. The woman felt her chest fill with relief. She hadn't lost her job. She hadn't caused trouble. Instead, she had given the father and son something priceless: connection. But something unexpected happened next. The father sat on the bench beside his son. "Move a little," he said gently. The boy shifted a bit to the side. The father placed his fingers on the keys, and for the first time in years, he began to play. The melody came out soft and shaky at first, like a forgotten language returning slowly. But soon the notes began to flow more naturally, carrying warmth and memory. The boy listened with wide eyes. "Is that how Mama played it?" "Yes," the father whispered. "Just like this." The woman stepped back and watched them. The father played the melody. The boy placed his hand on his father's wrist to feel the movement. And something inside the room shifted, something deep and healing. When the melody ended, the father turned to the woman again. "I want to thank you," he said. "You didn't just teach him piano, you brought something back into this house that we'd lost." She shook her head lightly. "You don't have to thank me. I only wanted him to feel joy." "And he does," the father said. "Because of you." The boy pressed a key gently, letting the note echo. "Can we play together again?" he asked. "Yes," the father said with a soft smile, "as many times as you want." From that day forward, the house changed. The silence that once felt heavy began to fill with soft melodies and warm laughter. The piano room became the heart of the home, a place where the boy learned, where the father healed, and where the woman felt like she finally belonged. Each morning, the boy woke up excited to practice. The father joined them whenever he could. Sometimes he watched quietly. Sometimes he played a few notes. Sometimes he just listened, his eyes full of memories and pride. The boy's confidence grew stronger than ever. He started making his own little melodies. He explored low notes, high notes, soft notes, strong notes. He found joy in each sound. And every new piece he played was a step toward a brighter future. The woman continued teaching him with patience and kindness, but now she didn't feel fear. She felt proud, and the father, who once walked through the house like a shadow, began joining them more often, smiling more, talking more, and reconnecting with his son in a way he never expected. People in the staff noticed the change. The house felt warm again. Alive again. One evening, the father asked the boy, "Do you want to learn a full song?" The boy grinned. "Yes, a real one." The woman laughed softly. "You're ready?" The father nodded. "We'll learn together." And so they did. Day by day, note by note, lesson by lesson. They built something precious, a bond that no silence could break, a connection that music had gently restored, and a memory that would stay with them forever. The woman hadn't just taught the boy to play the piano. She had brought music back into their lives. And in doing so, she changed everything. And the boy, with every note he played, reminded them both that even in darkness, there is always a way to find light, sometimes through a melody, sometimes through love, and sometimes through the simple kindness of someone who believes in you.